Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Phil Grear. I did a session last week. It was on impact, having to do with the three planes of movement in the body and how they relate to golf. This yoga for golf class today is going to be directed towards alignment. Now, alignment in golf is a very difficult thing to get a handle on if you haven't been playing that long. And the primary reason for that is because when you're playing golf, unlike any other sport, you're always at right angles to where you want to send your ball to and go to the target. And so what we need to address here is how it is that yoga is going to help a golfer become a little more mindful and aware of where they're going to line up to their target. Now, to begin with, 80% of the mistakes that golfers make happen before they even swing, particularly the golfers between, let's say, 16 and 25 handicaps. And if they could just get a handle on some improved alignment with their golf swing, then they're probably going to see a score change drastically. And that's where you get phrases like a good miss in golf. For someone who doesn't play golf, they think, well, how can you have something that's good but you missed it? Well, it has to do with alignment. And where we begin with is our club face. One of the biggest mistakes that golfers make is they typically aim their bodies. Now, I've set up this yoga mat here, and it's a good way to practice. In yoga, fortunately, you always have parallel lines on a mat, so you always know where your feet are, where your hands are, and where your joints are in relation to each other. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at the face and make sure that that's number one. Always number one. We aim the face, and there's a target out there. That's the middle of the fairway out there. And my feet are going to be parallel to that target line. So the body is number two. Face is number one, body's number two. Now, if we did what almost 80% of golfers do, which is aim the body, and you'll see a lot of this on the golf course using this line, they are really ingraining some big mistakes, and they're also filling up my lesson book when it comes to teaching, because a large part of the lesson books for most golf pros has to do with simple setup things having to do with alignment, posture. And so what we're going to show you is if I did aim with my body, my feet would be on the target line. Now my face of my club is going out to the right, which is where about 80% of golfers hit shots, to the right. So if we can simply get that corrected, start with the face first, then the feet, and then once we get to the feet, we got to go up to the knees. Someone who has good alignment are going to have parallel lines to that target line. The hips, and this is the easy part, hips, knees, feet. We get up into this shoulder area, and this is where yoga is probably going to help, because there's some yoga poses where we're forward on one side and forward on another side, and one side wants to open up, but yet we correct it in a yoga pose, so we become more mindful of where our body lines are in relation to the yoga mat, which we could transfer also to our target when we're playing golf. So we aim the face first, feet second, body second. We go knees, hips. We get up into this area, which is probably the most gray area of alignment for the average golfer, because the shoulders tend to point over to the left side, and we have bad alignment when we put our hands on the club. And now my shoulders, I can't see. They call it a gray area because you can't really see your shoulders. However, you can see your forearms. So when we grip the club and look at our forearms, if we simply try to get our forearms adjacent to each other, our shoulders are more than likely going to be parallel to the target line. Now, when one forearm comes out in front, usually it's the right one for a right-handed golfer, usually the right shoulder comes out as well. And then we have a target going over, or a line going over to the left, and we'll start to develop really bad swing habits with regard to things we're going to do next week on things like separation, swing plane. Okay, now just to give you an analogy of the difficulty of getting good alignment with golf, it would be very similar to taking the best marksman with a rifle. Out of millions of people, take the number one marksman and say, I want you to hit that target with the rifle, but I want you to hold the target out here and hit it. Now, even the best marksman is going to have difficulty with that, a lot of difficulty, and not just because of being at right angles, is because they're trying to aim something that's way out in front of their body, same as the club face being out in front of the toes, hips, and knees, and shoulders. Okay, so how we get that head around that is to bring in some visualization when it comes to your setup, when you're getting ready to hit a golf shot. We aim the face, and it wouldn't hurt to pick a secondary target, which is something out in front of the club face, maybe 1 or 2 feet, to just visualize a line, and then the target out there, which is the primary target. So we have a secondary target out in front of the club face. We have the primary target out there. We start to practice that. It develops really good habits with our alignment when it comes to playing a better game of golf. Okay, now we're going to do some yoga practices that are going to help you become a little bit more mindful of alignment of the body. Now when it comes to yoga, it's never correct or incorrect, and it's not just because the body is totally different, it's because some things work better for some people than others. And so when it comes to alignment, you're either going into better alignment, improving on it, or you're coming out of alignment and getting bad or getting worse. And you will feel something like that. And I'll give you an example. I'm going to change this mat around just so you can see better from the side angle. Okay, so what we're going to do here is we're going to start off in a table position. And when we look for a good alignment, better alignment when it comes to yoga, we're looking to get our joints over joints. You know, like our shoulder over our elbows and wrist. Someone with bad alignment in this position, they might be out here, or they might be out here, or the hips might be past the knees. So that's why they call this table, because the hips are directly over the knees, shoulders are directly over the wrist. Okay, so in this position, what we're going to do, just to get warmed up, we're going to uncurl the toes, lift the knees, and we're going to try to keep the knees exactly the same distance, both of them, off of the mat. If one knee is lower than the other, you know that there's something that's imbalanced in the position here. And we're going to go for about 6 breaths here. Big inhale, big exhale. Inhale, exhale. Inhale, exhale. Inhale, exhale. Inhale, exhale. On the last big inhale, nice and long, hold it for a moment and slowly lower the knees. Now from that position, we really got ourselves fired up in our arms and our shoulders and our hips and our legs. And so that's a good warm-up position. The next thing we want to do is go to the back, the midline of the back. So we're going to loosen the back up by doing some inhales as we arch the back down and eyes go up. And we exhale, drawing the abdominals up to the spine. Eyes look between the knees. Hold it there for a moment. Inhale, arch it down. Eyes up. Hold it for a moment. Really and try to engage the abdominals for this, because it's just going to help your back if you have any back issues. Exhale, arching up, eyes between the knees. Hold it for a moment. And go back to neutral. Now I'm going to reposition this mat so you can see a little better from the angle, from the front view. Because we're going to do a little bit of lengthening on the side waist. We talked about that last week. The one plane of movement that is rarely ever mentioned. I have hardly read any articles having to do with how critical the frontal plane of movement is in the golf swing. However, I have consulted with Dr. Jim Sutty, who is a biomechanics PhD, works with tour players, just to get his opinion, and he was totally in agreement with everything I said, although he does want to do research on it. I just wanted to get his scientific view on what we were doing. So we're going to go back to table here. Okay, so face on, I'm in table, and we're going to take a walk, keeping the hips and knees in place, but walk the hands far over to your left side, looking at me. Once you get in this position, for alignment purposes, make sure that your shoulders are directly over the wrist still. And once they are, and you feel secure, I like to call this side table, we're going to sit back into the heels with our pelvis. And as we do that, on the right sideways, all the way from the right finger down to the right hip crease, you're going to feel a nice long lengthening action taking place, which is getting that frontal plane of movement activated for when you go out and play. We do 6 to 8 breaths here. Breath in, hold it, breath out, hold it, breath in, hold it, breath out. 3 more. And we'll walk our hips back up into the side table, walk slowly back to center, and then just keep walking over to your right. And again, before you sit back, try to make sure you got that alignment with the shoulders over the wrist, and then slowly sit back, feeling that stretch on the left side waist from the left wrist all the way down to the left hip crease. Nice long lengthening on that left side waist. And 6 to 8 breaths over here. Make sure they're nice and long. Four cycles if you can. Breath in, hold it for a moment, exhale, hold it. So that's 4 parts to your breath. After 6 of those, we come back up and we walk back to our table position. Okay, for alignment purposes, in this next position we're going to readjust the mat again to the side. I think you can see a little better from this angle. And what we're going to do is we're just going to come up into what we call Tadasana, which is just grounding down into the 4 corners of each foot, toes curled up, slight flex in the knees. Activate your thighs, level out the pelvis by drawing in your abdominals. Lengthen the side waist by retracting the shoulders back a little bit, your upper arm bones back a little bit, the shoulder blades together, palms facing forward. Now in this position, it looks like I'm just standing here, but I feel a lot of activity all the way from the feet into the shins, thighs, hips, abs, glutes, side waist, and shoulders. Now the point I want to make with this, we call it the body compass sometimes in yoga, is that when you're setting up in a golf shot, you don't want any parts of your body falling asleep. And so when I'm getting set up, I want to feel some dynamic feeling coming right up through the feet, into the legs, into the abdominals, and into my posture. Now where we fall into problems here is we get out of balance, the shoulders come past the toes, or one of the shoulders sinks back, and that would be for golf. And that's where we're going to do this next pose, which is going to be Warrior 1 on the right side. Now when we get into Warrior 1 here, we're trying to get that knee directly over the ankle, and that's not because it's right or wrong, it's just you're going to feel a lot more stability in that position. Because if the knee's back here or out in front, you're not going to feel as secure. You should be able to look down beside your right knee and see your big toe. And the back leg needs to be activated from the glutes right down to the outer edge of the back foot. Okay, now we're going to try to square the hips off so that they're parallel to the front of the mat. We have a nice mat here with a nice edge to it that will allow us to relate to something outside of our body. We don't have that on the golf course, and so we have to visualize much more. Now once I get my hips somewhat parallel, they're pretty parallel, as I raise my arms up into this Warrior 1 position, there's going to be a tendency for a lot of us to squiggle open, and the left shoulder is going to fall back because the left hip is back. So we make that correction by doing a slight rotation over to the right, and you'll feel a lot of energy going on in that left side waist, as long as you keep your arms up. And then we come back and we try to adjust to get the shoulders parallel as well. And from here, we do 6 to 8 breaths. Really good stretch, not just for alignment purposes, but also your hip flexor. Hips are tremendously important. Next week, we'll be talking about separation, and the hips have a big part to do with that. We don't all have flexibility in the hips, and so doing some stretches will only increase the range of movement there. Okay, once we do 6 to 8 breaths here, we're going to bring our hands down to the mat, and we're going to step back into a high plank. Now we're going to go into high plank to create some activation in our abdominals. We're drawing in from the belly button, pulling in there, trying to get the heels over the toes and the shoulders directly over the wrist for alignment here. And if you need to be on your knees, that's fine, because we're all different. This is the same idea, it's a variation on it. But if you can go up here, obviously it's going to be a little more work. 6 to 8 breaths here. And once we get those breaths in, we slowly lower down. Now when we lower down, again, alignment, pull the elbows in towards your side waist. That's going to activate your shoulder girdle, and it's going to work all the areas in your shoulder girdle, which is huge for golf. Down onto the stomach, and then we went upward facing dog, and we go back to downward facing dog. You stay here for 2 or 3 breaths, and then we're going to walk the feet forward because we're going to go to Warrior One over on the left side. Whatever you do on one side, you do on the other. Unfortunately, golf is a little more lopsided because we're at right angles. We're using one side a lot differently than the other. But where one side gets longer, the other side should be getting stronger. And so that's only going to help when it comes to your golf swing. Again, look down to see if you can see the big toe on the inside of your left knee. Hands up high. Square the hips off to the front of the mat. Bring the arms up once again. To make that alignment adjustment, we're just going to do a little bit of a rotation towards the fairway. And we come back for 6 to 8 breaths. Breath in, breath out, breath in, breath out, breath in, breath out. And just as a reminder, this rear leg, you really want to firm it up into the mat. You should have equal pressure on each foot, even though you're going to tend to go forward just because of this lunge type of a position that we're into. But I can't encourage you enough to really engage that rear leg, the outer edge of that rear foot, and draw in from your abdominals to try to create a nice long spine here. One more breath in, breath out, hands to your mat, step back, go to downward facing dog, and now we're going to walk forward with the heels up, and we're going to walk them back, and then we're going to walk them forward again as far as you can go. If you can go all the way, that's great. Walk them back again, and we're going to walk them all the way to the top of the mat, and we're going to inhale halfway up, lengthening the back, slight flex in the knees, toes curled up, grounding into the mat. Exhale, fold forward. Inhale, rise. So now we're going to go to one of my favorite poses. It's called chair, and all we're going to do is turn the little fingers in a little bit to make the arms longer and lower the pelvis down, drawing the shoulder blades back, curling the toes up, pressing the knees towards each other. We get into this position. We're going to bring the hands to the center of your chest and turn slowly towards the right. Now, as I turn towards the right, the tendency is going to be to do this, which is falling out of alignment. We want to try to stay in alignment. We're all going to do this probably a little bit at first, but try to keep the knees adjacent to each other as we rotate towards the right. Check your knees. It's going to give you a really good lower back stretch, and it's actually going to give you a nice long line on your left side if you let go of the hands and lengthen your left arm to get this long line here. It's a double work here, I know. 6 to 8 breaths. Hands together. Raise up for a break. Big inhale. Big exhale as we lower back into chair. Rotate over towards the fairway. Check the knees. Take the right arm over the right ear for 6 to 8 breaths. The slower the movement, the better. Sustaining this position encourages a lot of stability in your golf swing. Your golf swing is really broken down into only 2 areas. You're either mobilizing or stabilizing. And when we are getting into alignment, we really want some stability there. That's why the positioning of where our feet are in relation to our knees and hips and shoulders is so important. And that's also why sometimes certain yoga poses can seem very difficult, but as soon as you tune into a little bit of a change in your alignment, it's not that hard anymore. And so it's a matter of improving. You're either improving or you're falling away from it. Alignment is the essential communication between your mind and your body. That goes for yoga and it goes for golf as well. And the more we can incorporate that conversation into what we do, we're only going to improve in all areas, not just on the mat or on the course. And I'm so happy to be here today to be able to share this with you, because there's a lot of simple little things we can do without sweating it out on the range that can help you improve with your golf game. Next week, the session is going to be on separation in the golf swing. There's a lot of debate on separation, not that it's right or wrong, but whether you really need a lot of separation or not. You might want to Google it between now and next week, because I'm going to give you some really good yoga poses to allow your separation to be a little better. And that just refers to what your lower body's doing with regard to your upper body. And there's also a backup on that. If there's issues with the back and separation is not a viable answer for a golfer, I have a solution the week after that. So thank you again. I hope you all enjoy this video and get as much sweat going as I just did in these few minutes. Thank you.